You know, all right. This is the penultimate session of Voodoonauts 2021. It's been great because we've had an opportunity to experience so much generosity from the fellows to the Voodoonauts crew, but also the fellows to each other. Y'all have just been so kind and so brilliant. And now it's just our opportunity to experience a little more of this brilliance because y'all are going to read your work to us. So our first reader today is Aurelius Rains. And I got the name right the first time that time because I just messed it up. Aurelius, what are you reading today?
Before we go into the reading,
Wait,
before we go into the reading, I know one of the questions that everyone had was like how much time they would have. And since there are 10 people, I know in the document it says 3 to 5 minutes, but do you think there's time for a little more expansion of that time? In case someone has something longer.
5 times 10 is 50 minutes. Like, I mean,
That sounds good.
maybe 6 to 7, maybe 6 to 7. But if you've already chosen a shorter piece, go with that. You know what I'm saying? But also, you know, let's chill on it. I mean, let's just sit back and enjoy. If the salutation comes a little late, that's fine because we're all here for it, right? It's up there. If someone else decides to sign up, fine.
Yeah. It's definitely not too late to add yourself, though, you know.
Yeah. All right. Aurelius, what are you reading from today?
So I'm reading for a piece that I'm working on that I started right after the Ngannou workshop. And the workshop really helped me to think about voice and how voice is used. And it's a story I've been thinking about for a while anyway. And then that workshop has helped me put all the pieces together. So I'm going to read the beginning, just the beginning of that piece. And I'm going to go ahead and put the words up here so that people can see them, because I was told that that is better than just listening to people read for some folks. But also, this is my word vomit. So, you know, be gentle and be kind.
Because I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit.
Exactly. Right. So, can I spotlight or no?
Yeah, let me just figure out how to do that real quick.
Mm-hmm.
This shouldn't be hard considering that I'm the host. Okay, there we go.
That's it. Oh, okay, cool. All right, so I'll read there. You don't go getting police robots to chase you through the West Side because you want to have fun. But the excitement that Tariq felt at the thought of this challenge, he'd outrun actual cops. He'd outrun the wheeled robots they called the Chris Browns on account of all the dancing they did when they were still in their development phase. But these new, by the way, just to put this in context, this is an extrapolation of the Boston Dynamics robots, which they've recently started parading through New York projects, which I found incredibly disturbing. And so the story was sort of inspired by the thought of these robots becoming law enforcement robots. And so if you want to picture what these robots look like, that's it. Yeah, the Chris Browns. Yeah, that's what we're going to call them. That's the name. Oh, other fun thing about writing about near future is trying to come up with slang that people might be using 30 or 40 years from now. And so you might hear reference to the Peppas. The Peppas are the Peppa's pigs, which is another name for the cops. So the Peppas.
I'm uncomfortable.
He'd outrun actual cops. He'd outrun the wheeled robots they called the Chris Browns. But these new interceptors were a whole new animal, like an actual animal. Tariq saw the videos online. Robots that moved like cheetahs and used a robotic arm and a hand that moved like a card hustler. They looked fast in the video. But the real desire came when he was looking out his apartment window and he saw Michi get caught by one. Now, Michi was running out and you could already see that he was getting tired and starting to stumble, and he's slow anyway. But the interceptor came around the corner like a greyhound, reached out that long arm while it was closing in on Michi, and then the hand grabbed Michi's ankle in mid-stride. At the same time, the interceptor's legs folded in on themselves and Michi went down hard, and no matter how hard he tried, he could not pry off the hand on his ankle. The interceptor stayed there as dead weight, too heavy to be dragged by the tired man. All them squares make your lungs weak, Tariq muttered to himself while he watched the pepper pull up, handcuff, and search Michi, and then put him in the car. Tariq just knew he could outrun one of these interceptors because Tariq was fast, had been since he was a shotty. He used to make money running product for one of the OGs on the block. He didn't even know what it was. He would just run the product and then run back the money. Carlton, that was the OG's name, Carlton, like the rich dude from the old reruns. Carlton would give him the product and then set a timer. Tariq would be off and back with the money. When Tariq got back, Carlton would tell him his time. And because at 5, Tariq didn't have a good handle on how space and time were connected, he expected to beat his time no matter how far away the drop was. And usually he did. It wasn't until he was a teen that he realized that Carlton sent him about a mile away from his block and Tariq had gotten back in 8 minutes. 8 minutes to run a city mile, drop the product, collect the money, and run back. Tariq still remembered how impatient he was when the drop acted like he didn't find the money, messing up his time. But when Tariq's dad had found out what was going on, he put a stop to it. Talked to Carlton about it, and Tariq was scared for Carlton. Talking to his dad, Pops didn't say much, but he didn't raise his voice either. So when he looked at you, and when Tariq saw the way that Pops was looking at Carlton, he could feel the anger trouble the air, and Pops was about to whoop Carlton. But they just talked, said some stuff Tariq didn't understand, and Carlton from that point on only nodded at Tariq when he saw him in the street. But from that time, Tariq was obsessed with how fast he can get from point A to point B. And although he never worked for Carlton again, his work with Carlton had become a neighborhood legend, and people were fascinated with the story that became Tariq's speed. It was understood nobody gave Tariq anything that would slow him down. You could even sell him bootleg J's if the thought was that the shoddy quality might hurt his blessed feet in any way. Don't tell me people in the community ain't got no pride. So Pops always complained that he wished schools still had track teams. And there was a team at the Park District Tariq ran with until he was a freshman. But the coach had a stroke, and after some attempts to replace him, the team was disbanded. So there were some years when Tariq had no one to compete against, just himself in these blocks. Sometimes just hanging out, somebody would dare him to run the block to see how fast he would go. And it was a bet that meant that they would throw Tariq a bit of money. Tariq had just finished his senior year. He was settling into the fact that his skill, his gift, was not a gift for men, just boys. And as he looked at adulthood, his opportunities for work did not account for his ability to get from point A to point B. He was starting a job at a fulfillment center, but I mean, come on. So when Taylor told Tariq Carlton wanted to talk to him, he already knew why. "We're going to steal an interceptor," Carlton said, sitting on a desk in a garage that was tucked away in an industrial park in the city, surrounded by grimy body shops at a junkyard. Everything here was dirty except Carlton, who smelled like cologne, was wearing a tracksuit with a gold chain like he was a mobster or something. "Parts are hard to find. Processors, chips, all that is rare. The parts in that interceptor will sell for at least $1 million, and I want one. I got a guy who got all the tech stuff worked out. He knows how to catch one. We just need to get the robot in incentive." The way he said incentive didn't hit Tariq in the way that it should have. Being older and more cynical of this man made him realize that the word Carlton didn't want to use was bait. But again, Tariq was kind of using Carlton too, right? "So my man's smart. He thought of everything. He's going to tell you what you have to do," Carlton chuckles, "and you know what I want you to do." "Run," says Tariq with a smirk on his own face. "That's right. I want you to run." Carlton puts a hand on Tariq's shoulder like he's a coach about to give him a pep talk before a track meet. "You got this?" Yeah, I know you do." And Carlton looks down and away, and Tariq sees something like a flicker of, he's not quite sure. "I want you to go see my guy. His name is Crack. He's a little on the people skills, but he knows computers and robots and stuff, and he'll tell you what to do. You pull this off of me, I have you in a different pair of track shoes every day for a whole month." Tariq tried to hide a full grin as he pounded Carlton and then got out the chair with the split green vinyl and dirty armrests. The moment Tariq was looking away, he moved the blindings of humility and laughed. He actually laughed. So the rest of that is just notes that I took. So yeah, that was my story. As you can see, it's incredibly rough, but I'm really excited about it. And I think it might be my new favorite baby. So we'll see what happens as I turn it into an actual story that works.
Let me tell you something. You can't edit something that ain't written. So this is progress and process. So
Yeah.
That's a technical term. Ow. Thank you, Aurelius. Let me
Thank you so much.
Man, don't thank me. You are dropping bars. Miss Ernestine.
Yeah.
What are you reading today?
Today I'll be reading, God, trying to get this thing to work. Sorry, my computer is slow. So it's a scene from my high fantasy work in progress. You don't really need to know much about it to understand, but it's basically the main character's inheriting visions from her mother's past, specifically a moment during a war, but it's not very graphic. Okay, not for me. Can I start?
Before she starts, could you spotlight Ernestine? I mean, I know
You're on mute, babes. LB.
He was saying what I was doing. It's all good.
Wait, oh, my camera doesn't work, so I don't know. Is that an issue?
That's okay. We can look at your beautiful face.
Yeah, that's a great photo.
Okay. Here's Google Docs so you can follow still, because I'm not that tech savvy. I don't want to mess anything up by trying to share my screen or anything. Is it working?
As far as I know, yes, but baby, it's a reading. So if folks can follow along, that's fine. If they can't, they can also listen to your beautiful voice.
Okay. Mare wakes up stiff and groggy, sulfur clinging to her. The spell she cast weakened her and left her with a dream, a recollection. She remembers her hands, Mama's hands, deep in Terumuriro, her brother in a way, her child in another. They stood, bruised and battered, heads in the clouds where the air was crisp and thin, hills crumbling under their feet. Around them, on the ground, the faint racket of war. A wild fear lived in Terumuriro's amber eyes. He pushed at her soot-covered shoulders ineffectively, his second pair of arms cut off, wound cauterized before the battle had even begun. Still, he had fire at his fingertips. Even with his scalding touch, Mama could not be deterred. With but a thought, she regrew her skin where he burned her, casting a gold mist. Mama pushed through the pain and kept digging her nails in, past his red rock skin, past his writhing, scalding muscles. Kept going as her hands shook with agony and pulled at his ribs, pulled with all her strength, pulled with the strength of her brethren, of her elders. Took everything they had, and with a harrowing cry, unmade Terumuriro, unbirthed him. And like a mother, as Mama screamed with terror and grief. She fell to her knees, hands slapping down platoons of the Empire's lizard folk. Tears prickled at her eyes. Bile rose to her throat. She pulled her hands away from the carnage. The surviving soldiers screeched and scattered, their god dead and his lava blood pooling in the crater his fallen body had created. She could not look at him, but his sulfur scent followed her. His body cracked open, small suns dying in his chest. Her eyes scanned the barren land so far away from her home until she found where her kin lay. She scooped them up, bodies crushed and charred where from Terumuriro's assault and defense. Her mind could barely wrap around the thought. These gods brought down, all willing because she carried the most magic, purpose awakened or not. They trusted her word and the faith she had put in one single mortal, one who, at least, remained safe and far away from this front line. She held them to her bosom, the whole way home, laid them to rest, and went to her lover, crushed 1,000 trees to get to him, to his little city and palace, anything to feel his love and know she had protected him and that it was worth it. But what she found was the most audacious thing, the most ugly name. So I'm done.
Thank you so much. And you're gonna and I'm gonna say this repeatedly throughout this. You gotta let us know when this finds a home so we can hype it up, okay?
Okay, I'm not even done with the rewriting draft one.
I understand that, but I said what I said.
Okay.
Nikita, you're up, love.
Hello. So this, let me see if I can share my screen. Can I?
Can I give you screen sharing capabilities?
If you click multiple participant sharing, it should be able to give her access.
Now I think you can share your screen.
All right, let's see. Right, here we go. So this is a story that, as I said, Shingai kind of reminded me that I had it. So I edited it somewhat this morning to fit the length of time that we were given. But this was just me messing around trying to figure out, like, can I write a soca story with like titles and concepts from soca songs? And I actually have a playlist that I can drop after this reading with the songs from this particular passage. So here it goes. Once upon a very recent time, there was a man known by many names: the Soca monarch, the king of the dance hall, his imperial Fetidocious. His kingdom was a small one when compared to empires past. It only stretched from the Atlantic in the east to the furthest west of the Caribbean Sea, from the Amazon in the south to the Everglades in the north. But never let this limited range fool you. Through his loyal subjects and through his own cleverness and charisma, he brought something new into the world. The thing he was most famous for was not his songs, it was his palace. A long time ago, when the Soca monarch was a young man, there were great ships that sailed the oceans of the world, carrying with them thousands of partiers and revelers and drinkers and gourmands, people who loved the fine things of life, but who didn't bother much about the consequences of these floating city ships. When the Soca monarch was a mere rhythm lord, he saw the way the ships had mashed up coral reefs and belched filth into his beautiful ocean and delicate sea. As he rose through the Soca kingdom's ranks, and the people themselves grew conscious and connected, he heard how they grumbled about the city ships, saw how they glanced askance to the ship's sunburnt inhabitants as they tottled down the ramps to gawk and point and poke at people and thing and animal and make asinine statements about the state of the world. He was a fretting prince when the ships started to die. In a world where the Soca citizens' agitation became mainstream, and people no longer looked at the city ships with favor. As the industry died out, the ships were left to rot and take up space, becoming eyesores and hazards. But the Soca monarch, then fetting prince, had an idea. With the money he had, he went to one of these city ship graveyards and bought 5 of them, much to the reigning monarch's alarm. You go and buy 5? That's a 1 or 2, 5? What you gonna do with 5 of them things, man? Watch out, they're dirty and rotten, the reigning monarch said. The fretting prince grinned at the old man and replied, I'm gonna make them fly. And that was how he secured his path to becoming the next Soca monarch, when he commissioned the deconstruction of the city ships and reconstructed them into the flying entertainment hub known throughout the Soca kingdom as a swing engine. That was 100 years ago, and the Soca monarch still reigns. Everybody from the people who party at the swing engine stocking stations to the ones who live and work on the engine has their own theories about how the Soca monarch lived so long. Some who hold on to the old-time religions eye the hovering engine with scorn, whispering that is the devil the monarch Mick deals with, and it's pure sin and filth keeping him alive. Watch how he look good, no? Beard ain't even turn salt and pepper yet, they say. Some of the young ones roll their eyes at this, claiming that the man is a rich man, and all know when everybody think the swing engine hides deep in the Caribbean Sea during hurricane season, the man actually running foreign to get some part of himself mechanized so he could keep on living. The second theory is closer to the truth. The people closest to the Soca monarch aren't allowed to talk, and nobody who living can remember the last time the monarch jumped into a crowd during a concert and let his people hold him up and carry him along as they scream and jump to his newest rhythms. Or even when last the man got a little back ball from a carnival dancer when tripping down the road. So nobody but his inner circle knew about the subtle humming you hear from his chest if you lean in close, or about the grinding of geared joints when he goes too long between lubrications. This year, though, when the swing engine docked at the Kingston Bandstand Hub at the Georgetown Seawall, the Soca monarch perched on the observation deck of the swing engine and gazed east beyond the high-wave shoreline. He turned his back on the dual towers of Pegasus and the Marriott obelisk. His shoulders were cold to the bend of nightlife colors waving and strobing over Georgetown. His focus was on the yellow holographic glow of the Jaguar head insignia in the distance. He would keep his parties for the coastland Guyanese over the next few days. Perhaps he would even go upriver to Linden here or Bartica there, but the university with its Jaguar insignia was his true focus for this particular docking. More specifically, the Soca monarch was looking for my father.
You're rude.
That's it.
You rude. You were looking for your daddy. Okay, I wasn't ready for that. That was lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You really kind of took me out at the end. Okay, sorry. Back in professional mode. Can I call up Ras Mangesha? Mengesha, sorry.
Yeah, you can. Give me a second.
Sure.
Cool. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna read from my last short story, The Color of August. I wanted to read something that I've been working on, but it's not yet there. So I chose to read something that.
This is a safe place to read works in progress, just in case you're curious.
Yeah?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be done. Because what's really done? Nothing.
Man, I showed you all my typos.
For real though.
All right, cool. So you guys, all right.
Leave that man's tabs alone.
Yeah, make sure you read this. So I'll read a work in progress therefore.
Appreciate it.
So this is called Seeking a Friend for the End of the World. It's a strange meditation in parts. It starts with joy or prayer, or maybe sometimes joy is a prayer. Seeking a friend for the end of the world. Part 1, where there is light. They are walking along the narrow streets of Ciudad Amurallada, a cartographer mapping something, seeking something they hope will free them. A horse-drawn carriage rolls by, and then another. They imagine the shiny black shells turning into pumpkins at midnight, the reins going limp at the carriage shaft, the horses becoming rats, scampering into dark alleyways. Behind the carriages is a line of small yellow taxis, and on the other side of the street, a sleeping baby is rocking in a pram, rocking because the streets are cobbled, old, colonial. This is where the Spanish made a new life, and this is where Black lives formed new histories. If they could imagine a new world, How can we not? They stand in front of Puerta del Reloj, a gateway, one of many, into the walled city. To their left, a dance troupe moves to the sound of beating drums, mapale. Chests push out, arms spread, faces shine, feet stomp, bodies turn and begin. And behind them, Cartagena, the city, a strip of white brush strokes licking the sky, guarding the ocean. They stand regarding the dancers. They remember home, but what is home if not shared memories? And what are memories if not scattered fragments, some flung thousands of kilometers away, so that even here they are also home? They pull a 2,000 pesos note and crumple it in their palm. They then walk towards the music. They want to dance, but they only unclench their fist and watch the balled up note fall into the upside down hat. The music is behind them as they walk through La Puerta del Reloj. And when the woman who has been watching them asks them in broken English how they are, they smile and say, no gracias, and walk away. The woman smells like spices. At the park, after 2 gin and tonics at KGB bar, they sit under the stars, the humidity holding everything to them like a licked stamp. And when Venus comes head wrapped in golden cloth with her tarot cards in hand and a tray tucked under her arm, they are ready. They do not resist. They know to let go. And they listen when Venus draws the cards, and they listen to the cards, and they listen to the past, and they listen to the present, and they listen to the future. After the reading, they trust, and the stranger now friend offers to show them Getsemani. It is past midnight, and they are talking about adventures, misfortune and fortune, about treasure, about losing and finding and building. They sit on a bench at the Holy Trinity Park and watch some young people drinking beer and listening to music from a Bluetooth speaker. The group is practicing, it seems, and they are happy, and they are laughing, and they are 2 strangers, and the 2 strangers, now friends, are watching and being. This moment is important for both of them. In the morning, they think about the cyclic nature of their journey. They are tired of going and coming and going and coming. They are remembering Venus kissing them on their cheek and disappearing into the night. This is how the journey must be. Not a cycle of going and coming back to the same place, but a series of comings and goings, disappearing into many darknesses to appear elsewhere, where there is light. Yeah, so I'll read there, but there's still a work in progress, but I hope you enjoyed it.
Child.
It's so good.
The language, like the language, the rhythm of the language.
Thank you. I'm trying to write something without punctuation or with punctuation done differently. So, but thank you.
Have you read Girl?
Yeah, that's actually where I got the idea from. I haven't read it yet. I started it and then I was like, nope, not yet. But yeah, it's definitely where I got it from.
Yes, Kincaid. Kincaid is amazing.
I figured it out, sorry. And that's the piece that Roz was trying to read that we didn't let him. All right, Oluwatoyin, we are ready for you to step up.
I guess I have to show my face now.
I mean, okay.
Nah, so I wasn't sure. I have 2 options. The first one is about a society who fights sea monsters and a lieutenant who likes her admiral. And the second one is about a hive mind who wants to infect a college student. So which one would you like to hear?
How long are they?
I'm only gonna do it for the 5 minutes. I'm not gonna do it for too long.
Okay.
All right, I see 2 votes for 2, so that one wins automatically. Let me pull it up. I'll pull up the text because I like it when I can see the text as well. Zoom. There it is, share screen. All right. Tessellated strata of leaves and twigs crinkled and crunched under your plastic soles as your film cohort trekked to the woodsy land miles beyond campus. In your right arm, you were holding by a fabric handle a hefty matty black video camera, a device generously lent to your group by the Academy for a short period of a day's quarter. Despite the continuous cascading of the sands of that 6-hour hourglass, you appeared to be in no rush. You walked by languidly, as if your legs were somehow separated from your abdomen and you were dragging them along. Or maybe your limbs were dragging your torso along. We had not been introduced yet, so we watched your cluster walk ahead of you without interest. Grief and sterility had clouded our multifaceted eyes with dolorous indifference to all else. Regardless of our preoccupation, we were and still generally are apathetic to human forms and chitters. So we had no substantial reaction to the call of, "Is this a good post, Paloma?" But neither did you. It's okay, you let's learn unconcerned, looking into the distance, just a little bit to the left of the area your compatriot was standing. "I don't think so, not enough natural light here," said another of your cohort. "Let's move over to this tree over here." The fourth person said as the group walked over to the top poplar, "Should my character say this in a more sarcastic way, or is he genuine?" They pointed to the script, they pointed to an oh man, that's a thing. They pointed to a script on an object on your hand. I think slightly sarcastic since the two of them have that sort of friendship where they're always insulting each other, but they know that they care about each other, so it's not serious, replied the first person. The person who had chosen the tree countered, "But this scene is serious and isn't a joking matter. Robert would be real." Such discussion did not spark any words from your lips, which pursed slightly as you slid your hands over the poplar's bark. At this point, all of us had entirely lost interest in your cohort's activities and resumed our hunt of the area. Our bodies flared through the masses of trunks, weaving in and out, to and fro, from the canopy up high to the underbrush below. Brilliant verdure sparkled with nut brown and gray, kaleidoscoped in our eyes, the picture garnished with the occasional violet of a butterfly, carrot of a fox, or sapphire of a bird. In its searchers are we, our senses sharper, never seeing, ever feeling, ever tasting. Yet the sensation of overwhelm nagged at us all. The tight thread of our unity began to fray as we established a location to regroup. "We are foragers, not salvagers," was a thought that flashed in our mind. Even if it had been a thought intended only by one of our cluster, by its very existence, it began to take root in the soul of our conscience we shared. Another thought, formed as an appendage desiring to pry out the new weed, whispered, "What is the difference?" But in the imperceptible lacuna between an individual thought and its sudden existence in our coalescent spate, a shriek, unmistakably alien, disoriented us. Instinctively, we diverted and directed towards the source of the sound, which had been made, of course, by one of your group. As we carefully approached that smell, the one which, despite the absence of its originator, stubbornly refused to depart from us for months, grew stronger. Its sweet chemical aroma pervaded the air around the recently canker-infected willow your group appeared to have settled filming at. If not for our size, he would have zipped over to the exact spot. But in self-preservation, we watched as your quartet stumbled in shock, curiosity, and what appeared to be disgust, a bizarre reaction to us who were weeping like the willow in joy. At least, we think the vibration of Araceli Satai corresponds most to the human act of shedding tears. And the first thing I noticed was the deep cloying smell. Before knowing, my classmates were all huddled together in the space where the thing lay, and a acerbic yet saccharine scent trickled into my nostrils and spread into my mouth. I could taste it, its competing flavors, somewhere between biting into a syrupy lemon slice, sipping a tart, tanky glass of lemonade, and licking a raw and decomposing lemon rind, spoiled by age and decayed by disease. Pacing over and peering over Chrissy and Allie's head answered the unspoken question, but inspired so many more. The most important being, what am I looking at? In the shade underneath the tree's fronds, amidst the lush undergrowth and brushwood radiating around it, lay some sort of coarse and disintegrating black fuzzy frame, seemingly the same length of my torso, but clearly at least double the width. A partially cracked ribcage lay there, delicate and almost translucent. Nigh limpid, viscid fluids had spilled from the ruptured stomach within. Its formerly eggshell swirling, whirling intestines below didn't fare much better. An army of ants, which I would have mistaken for wayward pieces of fluff if they hadn't been moved in an organized manner, were crawling in and out of the abdomen in pursuit of those sweet liquids. In the nether space of the creature's remains, nestled inside some sort of tapered space, lay messy bubbles of sticky eggs, a sickly, likely lambent yellow. These observations were made as Chrissy screamed, and as Wes and Allie moved back and dragged Chris with them, I aimed the camera's lenses at the body, trying to capture the grotesque beauty of the strange viscera, the way the sunlight hit the bowels and bone, and the position of the body all against the green surrounding it. Paloma, move, called Wes behind me. We don't know what that is, but I didn't hear him. The three of them kind of melted away at that point. They zoomed on the subject of my film. And that's it.
No, that's fire. Thank you so much. I'm gonna stop your sharing, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Now y'all see why you were chosen. We knew. Now I'm calling David Gilmore to the stage.
Y'all folk are intimidating.
Don't be intimidated. You bumped somebody to get in here. Go ahead.
So gonna try to stand up for this one. All right. I don't think I'm gonna share my screen to save the time. Nothing going on there. That's okay, unless it's just better. Is that better? Is it just better for everybody to share the screen? Let me see.
Give me words, man. Give me words.
Okay, so I named it. This is this piece, like Aurelius, it's something that's been on my mind, but I was thinking about, you know, like everything that we learned, using everything from all the classes, and trying to really complete something and finish the work. And so I got about half a piece done, and I think that'll take us about 5 minutes. So without further ado, I will do my LeVar Burton, take a breath and try to get this out. I call this Fire Shut Up in My Bones. God gave Noah the rainbow sign, no more water, the fire next time, James Baldwin. But his word was in mine heart, and as burning fire shut up in my bones. And I was weary with forbearing, and I could not hold back. Jeremiah 20:9. Sometimes I wake up to the smoke detector going off. It would beep, 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 and by the time I got the battery out, my neighbor would be banging on my door, a steady staccato beat punctuated by creative curse words. It was almost musical. He was convinced I was leaving a hot comb on the stove as if I were a narcoleptic beautician or something. Guess I could take it as a compliment that he was so impressed with how fly my hair is. Or I would be if he hadn't threatened to call the super next time the alarm went off. Tonight, or should I say this morning, was one of those nights. Our sleep was interrupted as a direct result of me having made the mistake of watching the news before bed. His name was Ladarius Stanton, and all he did was cross the street. After that, on a continuous loop on every channel, I passed out as if in a trance. I writhed under my sheets, tortured by oppressive dreams all night, and by 3 a.m., flames were curling up from my arms and legs, licking the covers until there was nothing left but little snowflakes of ash dancing around my bedroom, and a smoke detector determined to get me evicted. I just finished beating my sheets when he started knocking. Oh yeah, are you home? Yes, Ralph, I'm home. Please stop banging on my door. Releasing a heavy sigh, I cracked it open and peeked through the gap. Stop waking me up in the middle of the night, smoking that reefer or curling your hair or whatever damn hells you people do at night. He knew good and well I was wearing a bonnet and he ain't smell no weed. But It wouldn't be a day ending in Y without a microaggression, and now wasn't the time. His snide remarks were getting to me. The bones of my flesh had began to glow under my umber skin, giving off honey-colored radiance and making me look like a nightlight. I quickly cocked my body behind the door. I think something's wrong with the smoke detector, I spit out. My words are stumbling over each other. I'm gonna buy a new one in the morning. I promise. I'm sorry, bye. I slammed the door in his face and slumped behind him. He banged a couple more times, then finally marched off, muttering something unintelligible through the thick wood of my door. Leaning my head back, I closed my eyes and just wanted to sleep, but my lack of sheets and surplus of anxiety made that impossible. At least my arms stopped glowing. The company called it spontaneous combustion. I called it bullshit. There was a company-wide meeting, everyone crammed in a generic corporate lunchroom. It was musty as hell and could have been an email. HR was all solemn and long-faced, talking about suicide prevention and that they had counselors at the ready if anyone wanted to talk. But at no point did they say Shadrach's name or anything about what actually happened. And every other Black person I made contact with in the assembly understood that this was all bullshit, some of us more than others. We were sitting in the conference room, supposed to be going over budget reports, but Brad, our team leader, decided he wanted to shake things up, which really meant that he was going to be using the meeting as a soapbox to quote unquote enlighten us. The day before marked the 20th public lynching of a Black person at the hands of the state. The news that morning announced the latest acquittals, and this silver spoon-fed nepotist had opinions. I'd hate to be that guy, he began, and I wanted to disappear. But this is about personal responsibility, am I right? Bethany and Chaz's ascents were so fast and so damn predictable, I didn't need to hear them before my eyes almost rolled out of my head. At the other end of the table, Tanisha and James both mirrored my discomfort and disgust. Shadrach, though? Shadrach was having none of this. Personal responsibility? He said the words like he was testing them out, syllable by syllable, and the look on his face said he didn't like the taste of any of it. Whoa there, big guy, Brad began, patting the air with his hands. Just calm down. And that was it. Shad lit up like a Roman candle. 1 minute, there was my friend, a small bone, quiet Black man who would bring me leftover bowls of his grandmama's banana pudding and always had a joke ready when the world became too much. Now in his place was a 5-foot wide column of flame that scorched the arrogance off Brad's face and sent everyone else in the conference room running. I reached out for him, but the heat was unbearable. Well before it should have stopped, and all on its own, the flames dissipated, leaving nothing but charred Black bones and flecks of ash. As I leaned closer, I could see Brad curled up fetal on the floor, whimpering. I reached out as if to sift through the ash, and I don't know, tried to Hamlet Shad's skull. But before I could touch, the jaws opened and a small light swirled out like Tinkerbell, zipped around the room and right into my gaping mouth. I fell over into the nearest chair and could feel a slow, seeping flame extended through my bones. And all I could think was that rage smelled like barbecue. That's all I got right now.
Yo, I need to read that story. Like the whole thing.
I think all of us do.
Submit that story.
Yay, yay. You like me, you really like me.
Yes, you're here. Yes, we like you. We like you a lot.
You're so good. That was really good.
Thank you guys. This is the first time I wrote anything in a long, long time. So like, this was inspiration. This was great. This was everything.
Oh my gosh, it was so good. Definitely keep writing. Definitely.
Thank you.
I would throw a bucket of chicken at you because I think that's more useful than throwing a shoe, but I don't know if you have the same intent. I'm saying.
Mm. Mhm.
Sister Naja Jordan, step to the mic.
Present. All right.
What will you be performing for us today?
I am reading to you all from my first ever ghost story. Father Emmett greets all his children at the gate. Now let me see how I'm going to share my screen too, but let me get to that tab. All right, and then let me go back to share. All righty, let me see. Bear with me, I'm trying to figure out how to do this. All right, share screen. Here we go. All right. Father Emmett greets all his children at the gate. There is a moment after the body has dispensed all possible adrenaline that fear gives way to complete and total focus. I've been trying to hold on to the clarity of this moment by cataloging the details. The activation of every individual cilia as my nose filled with smoke, the scent itself, a mixture of savory grilled meats with notes of teriyaki and marshmallow. Something struck me as vaguely sweet. It was night, deep in a wood at the center of a clearing. The trees, a fellowship of spruce and pine, stood solemnly in attendance of the night's events, their scent chased from the clearing by the billowing smoke. I remember a darkness so thick that moonbeams struggled to break through the night clouds. Or could it have been the smoke? It's hard to remember some of the visual details. My sight had drastically narrowed its radius. But I do remember the firelight, the crackle and hiss of bespoke kindling burning beneath me, that garish sea of leering white faces, and finally, fixating on just one, the boy, not even 10 years old, his dirty blonde hair, dirty bare chest and feet, dirtier still cargo shorts, and blue eyes shining from the glow of those creeping flames. Perhaps it is a blessing that my ears began to go first. Perhaps it is better to have been gone by the time I could hear what I hear now. What could I have even done then? What can I do now? The question buzzes at the corners of my consciousness, daring to distract me from the scene. Uncle Jimmy, the boy weaved through the crowd, careful to avoid bumping his head on any of the beer or whiskey bottles dangling from the hands of the drunken swaying assembly. White men and women of various ages came out, and the crowd numbered 100 or two. Older white men sat here and there on the stumps of trees long cleared to make this ceremonial ground. Distinguished elders adorned in frayed tactical vests, bearing Confederate flags and accoutrements from other wars they'd never seen. The women took up on their own seated area near cases of beer and other refreshments, many with young children in their arms or fast asleep on blankets laid out on the protected grass. The younger men huddled in groups, drinking and cussing and spitting to mark their territory. Some of the young ones lurked through the crowd with rifles at the ready, hoping for a fight to emerge from the shadows. But even the animals knew to stay away. A single broken bottle could start a riot on any given night among this crew, and especially on a night such as this. Someone was always jealous at the end of the ritual. Someone was always itching for their turn and not willing to wait a month to get it. The boy approached one of the men toward the front of the bonfire, tugged on his greasy canvas pocket. That you, Lil Sammy? Did your part well tonight. Couldn't have caught a nigga unless you played possum real good in the ditch. Ain't you glad you stayed up late past bedtime? Uncle Jimmy rubbed the boy's dirty blonde head, his own face a mixture of dirt, sweat, and boozy grinning. Uncle Jimmy had the same dirty blonde hair and blue eyes. I wondered what else Jimmy and Sammy shared by way of DNA. Sammy nodded sleepily before delivering his message. Granny say, don't forget to grab her some of the teeth for to add to the collection. Uncle Jimmy's mouth opened wide as he laughed, exposing his chipped teeth. Granny, man, always laser focused on keeping up the family history. He continued, unzipping his work pants as he balanced on the edge of the fire pit. Nigger's still smoldering, but you go on back and tell her I'll come out and get him before work in the morning. Get yourself to bed now. He leaned back and let out an arc of piss, laughing at the steam rising off the burning mound of ash and bone before him. Me. A fierce wind began to sweep through the wood, shaking the trees as it raced toward the clearing. In a pine tree just outside the clearing, an old owl tucked his feathers and turned away from the noise. About a half-mile east, a family of squirrels clung to each other in the hollow shell of a fallen tree. A flock of birds roused and scattered, nearly blotting out the moon in their wake. I could feel all life in the wood trembling. I could feel fear in every living thing except these white people. Uncle Jimmy stumbled at the edge of the fire pit as the wind struck him, and I greedily desired his fall. But Uncle Jimmy managed to stay upright. The wind died down just as quickly as suddenly as it picked up, unnoticed by the revelers whose faces I was intent on committing to memory. In my study, I began to feel a stirring behind me where my shoulders might have been. I turned and found myself facing two young Black boys whose faces I remembered, but names I couldn't recall. The one on the left, a shy youngin with glasses and gap teeth, seemed to hum along to an internal music. The other one, the one on the right, another youngin, seemed perpetually tired yet unable to find rest. His eyes carried enough luggage for a cross-country drive, but I didn't have time for them. Listen, I don't know what you're doing here, but I need to go, I began. Go where? Sleepy drawled, with about as much interest as one gives to ants meandering across a picnic table. I started to answer, suddenly unsure. I have people to follow up on. I stopped, realizing that we were no longer in the woods. We were surrounded by what felt like sky. There were clouds and lights that might have been stars. I couldn't see them clearly. People? What kind of people? Glasses asked, suddenly very present. These questions started to make me anxious. I needed to get back to the woods to follow those white people, and these two kids were distracting me. Listen, I'm sure you're just trying to be helpful, but I've got real business, grown-up business to handle, and I need to get back. Sleepy and Glasses smiled and regarded each other knowingly. What? I asked, feeling the wind rise and quell again. Sleepy sighed, drawling again. Well, it's just about this grown business. We're technically older than you, bruh, at least here anyway. What he means is we've been here longer, and that gives us a kind of smarts. So we can help you along. Glasses stopped abruptly and looked away, distracted again by his music. I looked at them both and gathered that there was something they weren't saying. Glasses came back again, trying to reassure me. It's okay, man. He'll explain. He'll explain it all. Who? Who is he? I really don't have time for this. The wind latched onto my words and magnified them. But you do, though. That's what we're trying to tell you. Sleepy labored to say, his heavy eyes straining to meet mine. No, I don't, I thundered as the wind cracked. Those people, I have to get back there. Glasses was suddenly at my side. Who? What people? Is it someone you love? Someone I love. How could I have forgotten? This whole time, and I hadn't even thought of them. They had to be worried about me. They had to be looking for me. The sky around us cleared, and I found myself in a room at approximately midday. The sun shone meagerly through dirty blinds and illuminated some sort of office. There were 3 rows of old metal desks, the kind you find in an underfunded, out-of-the-way government office. A row of overstuffed file cabinets lined the wall furthest from the sunlight. Overhead, a series of dim fluorescent bulbs flickered, challenging the natural glow of the sun. I could feel the current working hard over old wiring, jumping tenuous circuits to illuminate the room. I could hear a low, steady knocking, the kind an impatient foot makes against the wooden bench in order to pass the time. There was such a bench at the front of the room, being percussed by such a small foot attached to a small, chubby leg dangling just above the floor. There he was, seated on an old wooden bench in that place, tapping his feet impatiently with an index finger half out of his mouth. I looked closely and saw teeth. My baby boy had whole rows of teeth. How long has it been? I held him just yesterday, small enough to cradle in one arm. But here he was, grown enough to hold himself upright and toddle. I reached for him with whatever I had for hands, desperate to feel his little brown face or rub his fuzzy little braids. Would I had crying eyes. But what was he doing here? I looked into the globes of his little brown eyes, open wide, and saw him watching his mother at the front of the room. My Selena, my beautiful Selena. I could tell she'd come from picking up our boy at daycare after work. She was in her nurse's scrubs, and I noticed they didn't fit as loose as they used to, even after having our son. She'd put on a little weight, not that it looked bad, mind you. I always loved her a little rounder. I'd forgotten the way those curves used to call me. My reminiscence was interrupted by the arrival of a man in a black canvas uniform with a shiny badge and a shiny gun holstered at the hip. This was a police station. The officer plopped himself down behind the desk, casually tossing forward a clipboard without even looking at my wife. He said over his shoulder as he turned toward the computer screen, "Report's closed last week." The desperation in my wife's face went unnoticed. "But how can you close the report if my husband is still missing?" Officer unbothered turned slightly as if inconvenienced. "Well, seems pretty straightforward. In your culture, sometimes the men just up and abandon their responsibilities. He had the nerve to nod toward my son. Don't have any evidence that's not the case here, but it's not, I'm telling you. That's what you all say. Officer Unbothered cut in, dismissing my wife with a wave of the hand. We don't have the resources to investigate every runaway. My husband would not abandon his family. Selena rose her voice in defense of me, and I'd never felt smaller. What's going on out there? A vaguely familiar voice called out from a room behind at the desk as the sound of footsteps drew nearer. Uncle Jimmy. That filthy ass white man stood there, uniformed, in the doorway with his hand perched on his holster, itching. I hope we're not going to have a problem now, are we? He fixed his mouth to address my wife. The desk sergeant just said, surges of current overwhelmed those ancient breakers, blowing the electricity in the entire building and interrupting that foul indignance. Everything went dark. The ground beneath the building trembled and officers began to panic. Trigger fingers trembled as uniformed white men scrambled to check circuit breakers and find flashlights. In the gathering chaos, I sidled up to my wife and breathed intention into her ears. Get my son away from this place. Selena froze, her eyes growing into saucers. Did I get through? Our baby tugged at her leg, jogging her out of the trance. In one swift motion, she scooped him up and ran. I wish I could have followed her, rode alongside her in the car, reassuring her. But I wasn't letting this Jimmy bastard out of my sight till I was done with him. What I do, I wasn't sure, but I wasn't leaving him. That's all I have right now.
Of course we want more. Of course.
Come through.
And get that Jimmy bastard.
Thank you, y'all.
Honestly, Jimmy must be got.
Thank you, y'all.
Honestly and truly.
That's the thing you do with dialogue. Chef's kiss.
Babe.
Scroll through and look at that chat though, because this is just a little of the praise. Stay with it. Before I pull up the next reader, I just want to point out, so the salutations are in the program. We're going to run long on this. We're going to enjoy this a little bit, but I'm closing down the sign up right now. So our last reader will be Awino, okay? But our next reader is going to be our dear Maurice Moore, who's a little scared. Don't be scared. You got this. We know you.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
And can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We also see your gorgeous shirt.
Yeah.
Thank you. Here I go.
We see that hair.
This was called Rahim's Dance. It was hot as hell at the Not Sink farm. All the cheering and most of the farmhands huddled around under the old tree to hear the old man's story. He only charged folks about a gallon of water and a couple bags of tobacco. That's tobacco for you city folks, for one of his tales. Was all people could afford back then, mind you. Hell, he would have been happy if you just let him pick roots to eat. Even signed for folks with no extra charge, of course. Anyway, after a long day's work, 2 generations of tellers headed home on an old country dirt road. The old man pulled a shimmery copper-colored pouch from his left pocket and loaded his cheek with tobacco. Old man spits in slop cup. Rahim, Daddy, why you acting funny today? Old man, okay, Rahim. Y'all been acting idle long enough. Next time you finna entertain the folks at the plantation, and I will sign as best as I can. Laughs, that's if my arthritis don't hold me back. Blue, white, and pink intersecting contour lines done on that blackety blackboard. The horizontal and vertical lines swirl and overlap throughout the piece, covering most areas. The line weight changes throughout the piece, with the thickest lines concentrated right at the top of the margin. Raheem, no, daddy. Old man, don't you be knowing me, boy. My mirror ain't what it used to be. Raheem, but why me, daddy? Old man spits in slop cup, cause that's what our folks do, Raheem. Raheem silent. Old man, we hold our recipes for our his hexteries, cooking up something good to feed our people's soul, kept hidden under the guise of recipes or through our dances. Our stories hold our lineage, spits and slop cup. Raheem, silent, bows head in shame. Old man, look, you don't have to do it like your daddy do. There ain't nothing wrong with dancing your tails out if that's the way they come out. Raheem voice cracking. I know, daddy, lowers head. Old man, heads up, boy, spits in slop cup. If your daddy Earl could see you doing that mess, shakes head. Raheem, I know, daddy. Daddy Earl, um, 8 fat film contoured figures are getting down in the center of the paper. Starting from the left, the figures are posing, jumping, serving looks, and the work is done on tracing paper with the opaqueness being on the left. The thick line weight is maintained throughout the piece with thinner lines making up the bottom right lower body of these voluptuous figures. Old man, laughs. Earl used to dance his tails out about the ancient folks' tooth, sucks teeth. Raheem, really? Old man spits in slop cup. But in the time of our youth, the man folk weren't permitted to dance their tails. Yes, that was only for women and films. Worlds changed. Raheem, yes, but it's still mad scary. Telling, that is. I mean, it's like I get lifted to another plane of existence when I dance. Old man spits in slop cup. And how you think the world changed, Raheem? Because folks like Daddy Earl risked being banished for dancing to keep cooking up the past. They all floated, baby. Why you think they call us the flying Africans? Women in films. A black and white hand-drawn illustration shows a group of disabled people using crutches, some seated in wheelchairs, some folks using walkers and standing in the center. One of the folks is giving their best black power salute. Yes, on that John Carlos, I think I was going to say tip or T. Um, Earl, Sissy That Walk, become about 50-11 figures fill the center of the picture plane. Some be crouching, others dark walking and giving that film realness. The lines are sketchy and rough through the midsections of the figures. The line weight is thick, but a thin, scribbly line flows throughout most of the figures, connecting the ancestors to their descendants. The work is done on tracing paper with the opaqueness coming through. The center, the top left corner of the paper is light with the bottom right and right plus at the top corner being darker. There are maybe 7 hazy figures located in the center of the paper and spreading out. Raheem whispering, Daddy, you know that's not what the Flying Africans was about, laughs. Old man, I know, just trying to make y'all giggle. Why you whispering? The ancestors were cutting up just like this, spitting in slop cup. Raheem, I know, Daddy. So how long do I have to prepare? Old man spits and slop cup. Oh, with what we gather today should last me and your hungry mouth siblings about 2 weeks. Raheem, what am I even gonna dance about, Daddy? Old man, boy, don't you know anything? Laughs. You will take the place as teller, and so my tails are automatically bequeathed to your peanut head, plus Daddy Earl's too. Raheem laughs. Sounds like a plan, old man. However, I'm going to go with Daddy Earl's move first. Old man, and which moves would that be? Raheem bending his arms, rhythmically dancing. You know that nursery rhyme about the Caesarius folks and the hunters. Old man spits in sock cup. Raheem stance. 9 figures occupy the top left of the bottom left and right of the college blue notebook paper. The figures are made with dark blue lines that is sketchy and maintains the same line weight throughout the throughout each figure. The age and gender of the figures is open, but they do appear to be somewhat childlike. The figures are to be making wide movements. The paper is shifted at an angle, making the rude pinkish and bluish lines at a diagonal. Thank you.
That was very fire. I love the idea of storytelling through dance and food. I'm not gonna steal that, but I might borrow it. And I will credit you.
I love
Thank
the
you,
mixed
everyone.
media. Just like you came at it from two different angles, and I love that.
There are a lot of people who are looking for mixed media work. If you are not submitting, you have to start. That was
the
dumb.
way
That doesn't make sense. It was good. It was, yeah, stop talking.
the way that you capture like Southern dialect, like that's just it's just in the moment, and combining that with your art. That's your art, right? I'm not mistaken that. Yes, the combination
Yeah.
with your art and then your descriptions. Your descriptions are almost Southern and New Age, showing this art of a time that is not here anymore, but then with that dialect in between and this running dialogue telling a story almost in the form of a play, and gorgeous. I mean, you could translate something like this to graphic novels or make the play. I mean, anything. The world's your oyster. Like confidence. Keep that head high because you did that.
I mean, or just what it is right now. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, turn it into a screenplay if you want to. Turn it into whatever you want it to be, or submit just this as it is. Like, it's so fire. I'm not a person I'm not a visual art person, and so I don't usually even look at mixed media because I'm like, I'm probably not gonna get it. But you gave us these scenes in text, and then you gave them to us on page, like as visual art, and I was like, wow, this is such a powerful way to ensure that the audience is experiencing what you want them to experience in a way that I've only experienced with filmmakers. So again, still blown away. I'm gonna stop talking now though.
Thank you.
So I'm just gonna say, me, I'm already crying. Just like that was the perfect.
Oh, I am completely blown away, Maurice, and everyone else, because you guys, the fact that you're so fucking amazing and you're here and you chose to share space with us and to be in this room and in this class, and I'm honored. I'm very grateful, and I'm very honored that you all are here for Voodoonauts 2021. And this started as a really, really random idea between me and Yvette, like early last year, and the fact that this is what it's become. Oh, I don't know where all these feelings are coming from, but that was just incredible. I am also a crybaby.
Make sure you scroll up in the chat so you can read the comments that were going on while you were reading, because I think that's where you get the weight of that particular experience. Make sure you go through and collect your flowers, okay?
All right, thank you.
Of course. Courtney, calling you to the stage, beloved. I think you're muted, beloved. Can anyone hear her?
No, I can't hear her.
That's it.
No?
Oh, wait, there we go. That's you. One more time.
Awesome. Okay, I don't know what happened, but there we go. Gonna have to collect myself because Shingai is having, I'm feeling the feelings and she's not helping. So I'm just gonna jump in. But this piece that I'm gonna try to screen share here is basically, I call it an excerpt, but it's actually not from the book that I'm writing, but it's from the point of view of one of the characters. And she's not a point of view character. So I wanted to write something that explores her head. And I'm actually considering making her a POV character because I love her so much. But okay, anywho. I had been in the dingy diner for nearly an hour before I got the first opportunity to break my promise to myself. The promise was doomed from the start, really. I needed magic like I needed the air in my lungs. Making empty, half-hearted promises that I wouldn't tap into the life force that constantly called to me was like saying I would hold my breath until I died. And I knew that wasn't gonna happen. The diner was busier than that day than I'd ever seen it. I hadn't had much time to myself, but I'd been craving the deluxe bacon omelet since the week before, and I couldn't deny myself that cheesy, greasy goodness anymore. My waitress, Gina, I think her name was the only wait staff on duty. Though she was completely swamped, she did a great job taking care of everyone. I took the last sip of the lukewarm coffee in my mug and grimaced. The cheap coffee was worse when not piping hot and straight from the pot. I raised my hand to signal Gina, who was helping a man at the opposite end of the bar. She acknowledged me with a weak smile and brief widening of her eyes before smoothing out the front of her apron and heading over to me. The man huffed out a sigh and cut his eyes towards me. I lifted my cup to him as if to toast and smirked. This should be fun. Gina hurried over to me, a smile pasted on her face. How can I help you, ma'am? I reluctantly tore my eyes away from the man who had broken his gaze with me long before I did. At almost the exact moment, I felt the chaos stirring just beneath the surface of my skin. Not today, not here, I chanted to myself. It did little to appease the chaos. Would you mind topping me off, please? I handed her my mug and gave her a knowing, girl, I've been there, look. She smiled genuinely this time and turned to fill up the mug. I sensed the man growing more and more impatient the longer the woman was away from him, not paying him enough attention. Excuse me, miss, the man called to her, clearing his throat as she handed my coffee back to him. She ignored him to check on another patron. That person fortunately needed something that gave Gina the excuse to go to the kitchen. She disappeared to the back, and I immediately felt the shift in energy coming from the man. Anxiety and desperation. The man's emotions had nothing to do with the handful of new customers that had entered the restaurant, but everything to do with further being separated from the waitress. The stirring chaos began to simmer now, a sure sign to me that it needed out. It sensed through me a need to fix what was broken, to course correct and right the wrong. As the only vessel around, for all I could tell, I had an obligation to obey, right? If I was the catalyst between doing the right thing and mayhem running amok, then wouldn't I be wrong to stand in the way? Gina, the waitress, came back with the item the customer requested, pointedly not looking in the direction of the annoying man. He visibly perked up when he caught sight of her, stroking the chaos in me once more. Miss, the man called for her. She went to him again, not attempting to keep her facial expressions in check. I couldn't help paying more attention to them this time. Can I help you? She asked exasperatedly. The man smiled slyly, reminding me of a slimy used car salesman. How about helping me back at my place? My skin crawled, my stomach churned, and my tongue ached to cast the spell burning in my mouth. The worst part was none of the other patrons in the diner seemed to realize what was happening. That or they just didn't care. But something told me to wait, that then wasn't the right time. In magic, timing is everything. If not practiced responsibly, disaster could ensue. The man's phone rang loudly in the bustling diner. Ironically, people did notice that and shot annoyed looks his way. As before, he was unaware of his surroundings and his personal effect on them. Hello? He yelled into the phone. No, Bill. You really shouldn't have done that. I told you I'd handle it. The couple seated next to the man cleared their throats and openly glared at him. It did little to get the man to change his social pariah ways. Suddenly, Though not out of a sense of courtesy towards his fellow patrons, he lowered his voice to continue the conversation more privately. But for me, the damage had already been done. He'd lit the spark that ignited the entire flame simmering inside of me, and the course was set. I closed my eyes for a few seconds to center myself, despite the bustle and chatter of the other patrons around me. I then swiftly whispered the spell beneath my breath, careful not to be overheard by the people directly to my left and right. The whole exchange took about 30 seconds, and before I knew it, I had grabbed the money out of my purse, needed to settle my bill, plus a little extra for Gina. Keep the change, I told her with a wink, smoothly shoving the money in her hand. I didn't need to see her face when she saw how much the tip was. She had done more than enough for me that day. It was a touch satisfying seeing the man fall to the ground with the suddenly concerned patrons gathering around his lifeless body from the safety of my car. And it was even more satisfying seeing Gina eye the man and go about her business as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened. The end.
If Midnight Indigo opens up again, please send it to Midnight Indigo, please.
Midnight Indigo?
Yeah, it was a Black women's anthology that came out, I believe, last year.
Okay.
But also Fire, but also Stellium Lit, but also Black Warrior Review, but also
Podcastle.
I mean, we're not gonna say, I mean, Podcastle will be a great place for it. I mean, I might know somebody who's an editor there.
Okay.
Maybe.
It's Shingai. Shingai's the editor. Shingai's the editor.
No, honestly, I'm the co-editor, but like they're readers and like we need more stories like these. Like
working on it.
Your prose was so tight. So tight. You didn't have any excess in that scene. It was just like every word was needed. And that's hard to see. Like even my editing eyes was like, dang, look at that. Like it was just like that was eye-catching right off the bat. Just the fact that it was just so tight, so novel ready. Like
thank you.
Ready to read some more of that. There's not an urban fantasy in the world that excerpt couldn't fit into because it was ready.
Ooh, that's good to hear. Thank you.
I love the tension build, like a very well done tension build. Tension building is hard. It's hard. You did a great job.
Thank you. Thank y'all.
Make sure you get in that chat. Collect your flowers, okay?
Yes, sir.
Roll up, okay.
I'm there.
All right, so now we're calling Deanne to the stage.
Yep. Okay. Let me share my screen. Okay. Oh my God. Move. Okay. So this is my first foray into actual like science fiction. I generally am more on the fantasy side. So, caveat, since we're already on Black People Time, I'm just going to continue that. I'm going to stop at the second hashtag. So just so y'all are aware. So the hunt. Removing her comm wasn't on Vega's to-do list, but it was only a matter of time before the trappers pinged her. Lord help her if they did. They destroyed the hunt, swooping in, grabbing the target, and asking questions later. She leaned against the backrest and closed her eyes, sinking into the gentle rocking of the car as it zipped through the city. Hydro cars had always calmed her, and she needed that now as she trailed her fingers along her forearm, searching for the indent. It was small and changed locations every few days, but every hunter knew the feel. The crack in the armor, the skin that was slightly too smooth, but only if you were paying attention. She slowed, her touch wisping along, the hair standing on edge in the wake until there. She opened her eyes. Today it was hiding right against her wrist near the ulna. She slid her fingernails under the crease and popped the lid of the arm plate. A rush of beeps and whoosh whooshes greeted her as the comm was revealed, nestled in the cavity of her arm. She reached in, fingers wiggling as she got prepared. There was only one chance to get it out. She took a deep breath, grabbed the comm, and yanked. The neurotransmitters in her brain went haywire, scrambling to reroute information so her body could stay online as the wires disconnected. The pain spiked, and it felt like she'd taken a gunshot to the head. She kept pulling until all but the main wire was out. That one had curled into a knot in her elbow, blocking itself into place while the head snaked its way back to the connection port in her shoulder. Damn it. Comm replacements were supposed to take place under stasis for this exact reason. The wires had a mind of their own. She grimaced, but there was no turning back now. A distress signal would be catastrophic. The hunt was almost over, and she always succeeded. Vega coiled the rest of the wires around her hand, making sure they couldn't escape before she grabbed the main one and pulled. Her eyes welled with tears as the wires scraped across against her muscle on the way out. It was fighting, but she didn't stop. A little pain was worth it. Finally, it popped out, and a wellspring of blood bubbled up in the space left behind. Her body started working to cauterize the wounds inside. Panting, she raised the comm and watched the wires dance in the air, electrons still firing, trying to connect to her nervous system. Skylight glinted off the metal, throwing a kaleidoscope of colors, a patchwork of purples and greens painted against her brown skin. It was beautiful in a way. She watched until they stopped moving. Days shot her a look from the front seat. You got it? Vega leaned over and dropped the comm in her lap. Really? Keeping one eye on the road, Days dug around in the middle console. Do you know how hard it is to get blood out of things? Cold water and soap, Vega deadpanned, which you damn well know. Or was there another reason why your thong was in the sink last week? She leaned back, her head lolling against the headrest, eyes open but unfocused. Right now, it'd be too easy to overload her sensory system. The why you haven't shut that off, I'll never understand. Cramps on top of everything we do? Absolutely not. Not everyone has lost their humanity, Days snapped. Vega shot up. She glared at Days in the rearview mirror. Days opened her mouth, but Vega turned away. Snippets of memories flashed, being cut open, modified. After everything she'd given, it'd never be enough. Vega, I'm sorry. Don't. Acid bubbled in Vega's stomach, and she swallowed hard, remembering a time when she could still sweat with fear. Before, there was no choice but to become a hunter to protect her family. Shaking her head, she pushed the memories and the images away, locking them deep within the circuits of her memory. This was not the time. I don't want sorries or excuses. What's done is done. Days returned to digging in the console. Vega stared outside. Nothing more than scraggly trees, burnt out hydrocars, and huddled forms in front of clustered houses greeted her. Brighter city. She'd grown up on these streets. She'd been warned hunting would change everything, but what else was she to do when she was the only one with enough stamina to withstand the change? The silence grew, neither one wanting to admit that they'd pushed it too far. It'd been a long few years since they'd gone their separate ways after the facility. Hunting together these past 6 months couldn't get them back to their childhood friendship. Each mod took its toll, and navigating boundaries was always interesting. The scenery shifted to open data planes before Vega finally muttered, touche. Days huffed a laugh. Now hurry up and give me a damn tissue before I bleed all over this car. Vega caught the packet of tissues Days tossed over her shoulder. She stuffed a few in the cavity before snapping her arm plate back in place. It'd have to do for now. You've got fluid to burn this car? In the trunk. Vega wiped up the blood trailing down her arm. It was tacky and had tinged her skin a slight purple where it had dried. She stared at it and clenched her teeth. She balled up the tissues and tossed them in Days' lap. Get rid of it. Days opened the window and tossed everything outside. How much longer? Vega leaned back in the seat. About half an hour. Who will it be? Days didn't answer. Vega ran through the list of people who could help. There weren't that many people Days wouldn't want to tell her about. It's Silic, isn't it? Days mumbled something before saying he was the closest. God, she didn't want to have to deal with him. Vega let out a deep breath. You know what happened? Enough to know what went sideways and to come prepared. Fine. There was nothing for it now. Vega rubbed her forehead, her mind whirling as she tried to figure out where everything went wrong. Those warehouses were still manned by humans. Even with Iridium, it should have been an easy hit. Her head thumped against the seat and she covered her eyes with her arm. Numbers floated across the back of her eyelids as reports were compiled. Wake me when we get there. Will do, Days said. Vega settled in for the ride, shutting down any unnecessary systems so the transmitters could do their work. It wouldn't fix the issue, but it would buy her time. The pain in her arm and skull had dulled. It was one of the good things about floating. She was aware enough of the outside world to react if something were to happen, but far enough under that pain was minimal. Coming back up would hurt like a bitch, but Silic had a pod and he owed her. So this is the first one. I'm gonna start with the second one. We're here. The words floated in, pulling Vega from the depths. She winced as she came back up, rubbing her forehead as if she could rub away the pain lancing through her brain. It wouldn't work, but it was one of the relics of humanity that she kept, one that let her blend in and do her job. She opened her eyes and glanced around. There's nothing special about the location, a crumbling building that was surrounded by miles of data planes, a few old world aspens dotting the landscape, just a random drop point halfway between Ryder City and Skylark Township, a good place to get lost in the space between uplinks. Days got out of the car. Vega watched as she walked toward a lone hydrotrike in front of a building. A figure shrouded in a tattered black cloak with a blood red hood over their face leaned against it. She got closer and the figure pulled Days into a hug before stepping aside and whacking her on the arm. Days kicked him. They tussled back and forth, the hood slipping down until Silic's sharp features could be seen. His dark brown skin golden in the skylight, and his stubble-covered jawline could still cut diamonds. Vega rolled her eyes, but couldn't help the slight smile. Good to know that Silic still had time to dress up as whatever video game character he was cosplaying today. Even if Vega hated that, he stood out. He was an augmenter, one of the last, and they worked in the shadows. When Days and Silic separated, Days gestured behind her toward Vega. Silic glanced over, his eyes narrowing. He started toward Vega, Days following. Vega steeled herself and got out of the car. He stopped a few feet away. He looked Vega up and down, lingering on her arm where the blood had dried, before catching her eye. Vega hid her arm behind her. She knew it was futile. There's only one reason she'd need a pod, but she didn't want to hear it. Couldn't keep yourself out of trouble, I see, Silic smirked and sauntered closer. And there it was. She hadn't seen him in 4 years, but Silic still had to gloat. Silic, Days hissed, smacking him on the shoulder. Don't be an ass. Days was always trying to make them get along. Some misguided hope they would all go back to being friends. Where's the pod, Vega asked. Not even a thank you, he snorted. He leaned forward, close enough that Vega could feel his breath on her face and said, did you deprogram your manners too? She narrowed her eyes. What the hell, she had nothing else to lose. The crack of his nose breaking was satisfying, even as her brain screamed at her for the quick movement. The neurotransmitters were not happy. You bitch. He stumbled back, holding his nose. What the hell, Days yelled. She stepped in front of Silic, pulling on his shoulder. Let me see. Silic shrugged Days off. He pulled his hand away slightly, keeping it cupped under his chin as if he was expecting blood to be pouring down his face. Vega raised an eyebrow. Out of all of the relics, he kept that one? Why keep the movements if not the bloodletting? Haven't deprogrammed the pain, I see. Vega smirked as she headed toward the building. She paused right next to him. His nose was crooked and a hard look blazed in his black eyes. You should probably get that checked. She pushed past him. Do you think it's wise to go against the trappers? They will find you, Silic called after her. Vega froze. That's why we have you. She kept walking. As she stepped into the building, she half expected to see the glimmer of a cloaking system fall. You could never tell in the planes. Some buildings housed massive networks of interconnected corridors squeezed into a 2-up, 2-down configuration. Others had terminal stations whisking you away to the time period of your choice. Just a memory visit, though for the right price, one could permanently join that era. Even the hidden spaces where people met to get lost had grandiose interiors. But the only glamour in this building was for the actual crumbling interior. From the outside, you couldn't see the massive holes where windows used to be. If wind still blew, the floor would be littered by the aspen leaves. As it was, there was a layer of grime on the floor. The pod was against the back wall and flanked by a surgical table and a bed on either side. Shiny blue metallic, the pod was the nicest thing in this place. She walked towards it. She ran her hand along the lid, stopping right before the view window. The interior light turned on and numbers floated an inch above the pod. She heard footsteps behind her. She turned. It was Silic. How did you get this? She asked. Make yourself at home, Silic grumbled, sounding like he had a cold. He had strained his nose, but it would take a while for the swelling to go down. She pointed over her shoulder at the pod. This is an Xterra portable. She narrowed her eyes. What was he up to? They haven't been seen in years. No, you haven't seen one in years. He pushed past her to get to the pod. Seriously, how? How what? Days asked, then paused in the doorway to look around. She let out a sharp whistle. How did you find this place, Silic? Haven't seen something this old since my early years hunting. Vega turned to Silic. He was looking at her like she was an idiot. It fell off the back of a truck, he finally responded before turning to Days. Since someone, he glared at Vega, got our last place found, I had to make do. Days walked into the room. It's safe? No uplink or data port, Silik said. He threw his hands out in a mocking gesture, a smarmy look on his face as he stared at Vega. You're welcome. He turned back to the pod and began fiddling with the control panel. Okay, almost done. This is literally the last page.
That wasn't intentional. Go ahead.
Vega wanted to snatch that look off his face, but Days would kill her. They'd already wasted enough time getting here. The lid of the pod hissed open. Silik stepped aside. Well, he said, waving one hand to the open pod, it's not going to heal itself. Vega stepped into the pod. I expect the car to be gone by the time I wake up. She ignored his rolled eyes and sunk into the liquid, letting it hold her weight in her worries. There'd be time tomorrow to regroup. For now, she let the memories roll through her as she slipped into stasis. The ruffle of her skirt across her legs as the wind blew. The smell of cornbread and stuffing and grandma's sweet potato pie. A mug warming her hands. The cold pinprick of a snowflake on the tongue. Praise dancing as the choir sung. They chose their relics. Movements, clothing, bodily functions, feelings. Each one a way to keep hold of the humanity they carved away. And that is it.
I'm so sorry about that. I was moving something on my computer and it hit the mute button. That was not me being the Sandman. Technical difficulty.
That's okay.
Yeah.
First time writing sci-fi. Okay.
Yeah, I don't believe you either.
It's true though. It's true.
Okay.
Doesn't seem true. I'm chiming in with that party. You've been holding back. You've been writing sci-fi on napkins and you just ain't been counting that.
Exactly.
Seriously though, so immersive, and of course, without info dumps, you just gave us the world. I was Blade Runner, but Black folk. I'm in. Let's do this. Let's go.
Oh yay! Thank you.
And I love the character building, like people deciding what parts of the humanity they keep and what they get rid of, right? So you keep the pain, but get rid of the bleeding. What, you know.
Yeah, like the details that you chose to incorporate, that was so bloody smooth, because I think that's the thing that a lot of writers struggle with, knowing what details to add to the world, that it's not too much, but also not too little. And they're specific enough that they feel real, that you're like, yes.
Yay.
Also, those bits about the world that changed, like that bit about if the wind still blowed, I was like, wait, what? Why isn't there wind? You know, so yeah, that was great.
Yay, thank you.
Again, go in the comments, make sure you get your flowers. And again, I'm so sorry that I hit that button while you were reading.
It's okay. I was like, okay, maybe I said, I'm almost done.
No, I was like, I'm not rushing you. I just want to double check. Terry, you still want to read, right?
If we have time, sorry, I muted myself.
No,
if we have time.
But Owino. You're just gonna go after Owino.
Okay, cool.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure I got it right. Cool. Beautiful. Owino, please come to the stage, beloved. Which really means unmute yourself, I know. I need to pee. Okay. Close the door. Okay, sorry about that. The little bodily difficulties there. And we know we're ready for you, baby love.
Can you hear me or no?
Yes. Yes.
Oh. And you can see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, okay. I don't want to give away too much, but I will not be able to get to the end, but this is kind of a short story that I break a few rules, but it makes like sense by the end, but you know, we'll just see. My very educated mother just showed us 9 planets. That's the title. And I shall, once I move this out of the way, I shall begin. My tail usually wakes up before I do. Today is no different, with it curling itself off of my body, twirling slowly up as if stretching. Sometimes I think it rises with the suns, following their lethargic arc over the horizon. I have long since concluded that it has a mind of its own and let it twitch a little more while I try to bury myself deeper into the earthen cave, determined not to wake up any earlier than I have to. This is a lie. Once my tail is awake, I am awake, but I have nothing to do today, so I can pretend a while longer that the sun does not instantly yank me into consciousness. When I give up my futile attempt to hold on to sleep, I stand up, stretching. Today is going to be a good day. The purple grass parts for me as I walk down to the river. The parting might be a reflex to avoid being crushed, but I always breathe just a little shallower, walk just that much straighter, feeling like royalty. The river's water is dark, opaque, yet still somewhat translucent, like a pair of sunglasses. I kneel to dip my hands in the water, and it stains my now green scales a little blacker. It tingles. Next, I wade into the water, glad to note that today it is fast moving and not the lackadaisical pace it has recently been taking on. The water reaches my shoulder in some places, but on my favorite rock, I can comfortably sit cross-legged and have the water skate just over my shoulders. I close my eyes and push back against the current gently before breathing in and lifting my scales so the water goes into my crevices. I sigh. I wonder what I would look like to someone else, a head with a riot of afro hair disembodied above the surface of black water. Of course, this is not a problem because apart from the plants, I am the only living soul on Orinthia. I made sure of that when I got here. My mid-morning walk always results in a tsunami of memories. Moving through the grass, sometimes stepping off into the riverbed to hear the squelching of my toes in the mud, I am set adrift in the river of my past. Most of the memories swoop past me, acknowledged and then banished if I have dwelt on them long enough, but some linger, trudging along slowly, waiting for me to notice and fall into them. Today, once I get past the elbow-like bend in the river, I am accosted by a memory of my mother. My breath catches as my mother's face plops into existence before me. The memory is always present in this way, projected onto what would be an invisible screen a meter in front of me. When I move forward, so does the screen. Sometimes I lean forward and can almost imagine falling in, but right myself quickly enough that the illusion is dissolved. My mother, still the strongest person I have ever known, even after all these years. In the memory, she pushes her locks out of her face. Her beautiful face, never mind that they fall back a second later and opens her palms wide, explaining something. Okay, so there are 9 planets, she's saying, and the 9 of us stare at each other. The older ones wonder if she's just making this up to keep us occupied. She has done this before. While the younger ones have eyes like when you tie a string into a circle, big and round and ready to be fashioned into anything. 9 planets. Mercury, she says, assigning it to Jombe, the smallest child who shrieks happily and mouths the word Makuri back to himself. Venus goes to Julia, who just so happens to be losing her teeth and self-conscious. And my mother stresses how the Romans believe Venus to be the most beautiful person in the world. I get Earth and I am disappointed. Earth is boring. My oldest sister, Veronica, gets Mars, and she smiles as my mother explains how Mars is red and has very similar characteristics to the Earth. In fact, she lowers her voice in a conspiratory manner, a secret. If people ever find out how, we could live there. I'm 6 years old, and this is the most exciting news I have ever heard. Nina, who has been sulking lately, gets Jupiter. And if you're not careful, my mother says, your head will grow and grow and become as big as Jupiter. We all nod solemnly at Nina, marking today as the first day she receives a warning. If she ignores it, it will be her own fault for growing a big head and busting at the seams. And Saturn, oh Saturn, my mother says, turning to Queen, who has been known to step into any remotely circular object and make it a hula hoop, of course, is my beautiful queen. I get distracted as she assigns Uranus to Joel, who just stopped wetting the bed, and wonder how anyone even knows about all these planets. She must be making this up. There's a shrieking of laughter, and I descend into the conversation once more. It is difficult to lose attention when my mother is speaking. Neptune is far, far away, and so cold that even thinking about it makes me shiver. A mock shiver follows her words, and she manages to coax Kobara into his sweater. The holes in the sweater allow his brown skin to peek through. She assigns Pluto to my oldest brother, Ben, who has just been accepted to university in the big city. We haven't seen him in a while. These are the 9 planets, my mother is saying, all big and beautiful, just like you all will be one day. Once she announces this, we are all expected to go to bed. We shuffle around the room, taking out the burlap sacks we use to sleep. It is my turn today to sleep with Mama on the hardest one. We are still chattering about the planets, and Jombe is announcing how when he grows up, he is going to run all the way to Mercury, which prompts Queen to say, Mjinga, you can't run to another planet. You need a helicopter. The rest murmur in agreement. Don't call your brother stupid, Mother warns, and she falls silent. Sleep beckons, and I accept its advances, cursing that I was given Earth and dreaming of my own planet that even Mama doesn't know about. Okay. The memory ends there, almost as abruptly as it began, and I feel drained. I wish I didn't have the urge to dwell in the past so much. My mother was wrong about the planets. There are so many more that she didn't even know about, and many yet to be discovered. Years after this particular memory, after all the horrible things had happened, and I spoke to my mother one last time and asked, why Earth? She looked up at me, gray with so many wrinkles that it looked like her face was kneading itself into dough, and said, Yari, you are Earth because I saw all the possibilities of life in you. The ironies of that moment were not lost on us. We laughed until we cried, and the tears that couldn't drown out the anguish dried up. Thank you. Stop share.
Damn.
Girl, that was so good. That was so good.
How do I get a tail? I don't know if everybody else is brave enough to ask that kind of question, but I am.
You know,
how do I get
look,
a tail?
That was only a question for me at the very beginning. There was just so much like luxury going on throughout that story, so much richness, just velvet on the walls and shit. So it's like, yeah, I mean, we can come back to the tale if we need to. That was at the beginning, like that was in the first paragraph.
And the categorization of the children through the planets. Yo.
Thank you. You're all too kind.
No,
you
we're still looking for the words.
You deserve it. They're not being too kind.
Yeah. Again, jump in them comments in the chat. Make sure you see what everyone had to say about it, because there's more love for you there. So don't lose sight. And submit. Everyone has to submit. We have to submit, because if we don't submit, then no one will ever see our stuff. Submit your short stories. Find an excerpt from your novel. Get it in the world. We might know, somebody who edits at a magazine. I ain't saying no names, but she said her name, so her name is said. You know what I'm saying? Terry's in. Are you ready, baby love?
I am ready.
Beautiful. Let me spotlight you. If I can figure out how to use this machine. All right, perfect. What are you reading?
I'm gonna be reading from a short story called Exit Music. I'm gonna get to it. There we go.
The floor is yours.
Okay. The night before, I dreamt of her, not of her directly, but she was there, tucked away neatly during each nonsensical vignette. She said nothing, only stared at me with a slight smirk nestled in the corner of her mouth. Towards the end of the dream, when I could feel my body reaching towards consciousness, she mouthed something. It didn't reach me until I woke up. 2 words. Burn me. And somehow I knew my sister was dead. We hadn't spoken in years, and the last time had been uneasy. She remained staunch in her narcissistic claim that I couldn't get over her marriage to my ex. It was a side note she offered to anyone paying attention, especially if I was there to witness it. I let her have it, the attention, my ex. I didn't mind it so much. Both were useless to me in the end. But our mother called me sometime our mother called me sometime after 12 to tell me the news. Your sister's missing. I swallowed back the correction. Is that right? The phone shifted and I knew I'd said the wrong thing. I didn't know what to say to recover, so I kept my mouth shut. Her husband called me. I held my silence, watching the trees beyond the window sway in tandem with the gusts of angry breeze. Somewhere nearby, a white bird was stripped, remnants of its coat of feathers floating helplessly along, never touching the surface for too long. She wrote a note, but no one understands it. And that's when I get it. The myth of twin speak. Didn't matter that we weren't close, that we were every bit of adversarial siblings as a pair could be. We were linked by a shared time in the womb. The thin shield between us ignored by most once twin was uttered. I shut my eyes and there she was, as plain as my dream, dressed in a pair of distressed jeans and a plain white tee, both designer. Her feet were bare and caked in mud, her hair up in a casual bun, white girl style with black girl permed hair. She smiled, her teeth coated in the same mud. Burn me. Zalitzi Renee, did you hear me? As I opened my mouth to speak, a tiny white feather flew into the back of my throat, choking me to the point of blinding tears. I strangled a yell, reaching for my glass of orange juice. I know, baby, I know, my mother cooed, her tone noticeably softer. I let her believe that what she wanted as I recovered, the acid of the juice burning my scratched throat. Any strategies made yet? I sniffled. My mother sighed. Not yet, they're waiting on you. I blinked, a fat tear sliding down my face. Who's they, and why are they waiting for me? His family. There was a marked tone of disgust, and it didn't take long for me to remember why. Call them. Let me know what they say. Ma, they may, you get along with them better than I do, I offered as lightly as I could. My mother held a silence, but I could hear her jaw creaking. Zalitzi, do not do this, not now. I resist what would have been a weak retort, knowing this moment of peace would have been best for the both of us. I looked up from my laptop, the cursor taunting me long enough, and back out the window of my kitchen. And in the corner stood my mud-caked sister. But when my eyes darted to the intersection of walls, she was gone. I rolled my eyes shut and took a long, calming breath. Okay, Ma, I'll call them. That's all I ask thee, she said, her voice suddenly tired. Silence again wedged its way between us. All right, Zalitzi. And with that, my mother hung up. Zeline was exactly 4 hours and 3 minutes older than me, a fact she never let me live down. Not that my presence made all that much difference. I was treated more like an accident than a novelty of a twin. I wasn't abused or anything dramatic like that. I was more left alone, and that was fine by me. I was an introverted child, prone to daydreaming in imaginary worlds that bled into very real and present one. As a result, I was institutionalized for 6 months when I was 8 after claiming my long dead grandma sat me down to tell me my good-for-nothing father was sleeping with my mother's sister, the hussy aunt everyone clung to their husbands around. My mother stayed with my father until his dying day, a defiance against grandma and me. It was then I realized my mother truly didn't like me, that she just felt just as stuck with me as I felt with her. We got along a little better once we silently agreed we didn't care for one another. College took me across the country and I settled somewhere in the middle with a useless MFA and a professorial track my mother could brag to her friends about, as long as I stayed where I was. My sister was the one to stick around, attending college only one state away, graduating with honors and a fiance. My sister began her surprisingly steady career as a book dealer shortly after her quaint wedding in someone's barn. She always loved the hunt, the brag of succeeding where others would stop when a trail went cold. She would have been a great hunter had she had the stomach for it. 4 years later, after a stellar track record and reputation, she had twin girls, then a boy 6 perfect years later. Calls were infrequent on either side once it was clear I didn't give a shit about my nieces and nephew. I sent them books too advanced for their age and sent cards months in advance or months too late for their birthdays. It was mostly because I never remembered when they were born. Unlike my sister's sycophantic circle jerks, I didn't leave, breathe, and die by her command, hence the X. He transferred to her college when he and I didn't work out. He took my preference for women so personally he made it to a point to stay in my life forever to show me exactly what I'd been missing. Incredible fertility aside, I didn't quite get the joke of why I'd miss him. The dick was trash, the person attached even worse. I was surprised he could even tolerate my sister's ego, considering how precious his own was. That ego was bruised and ready to batter when I walked up the steps of 2995 Sycamore Drive. Just as my mother mentioned, his family was all there waiting. Mom told me there was a note, I said within moments of stepping into the house. Alan sucked his teeth. You can't even say hello properly, Zalitzi? I blinked at him. For a moment, I forgave myself for being attracted to him at one point in my life. The man was quite easy on the eyes with midnight skin and beautiful teeth. But like most men, he ruined it when he opened his mouth. Finally, realizing I wasn't keen on responding to his shitty attitude, he closed his chestnut eyes and smiled and sighed. I'll get the note. Just hang out in the living room. I nodded as if I remembered the layout of the house, and we went our separate ways. I followed the wailing until I got to a pair of sliding doors. I slid them open, and before me stood the tableau of familial animosity. I never felt so hated in my life. I'm the one who broke the sweet prince's heart, left him for a woman of all things. The latter wasn't true, but I didn't dispute it. If they wanted to give me a love life more poppin' than it actually was, who was I to argue? Good evening, everyone, I mumbled, then slid the door shut, almost hoping Alan would show up before they could meet. But of course he didn't, so of course I had to sit down with the family I was stuck with, no matter what I did to get rid of them. The silence was uneasy. My sister's mother-in-law simply wouldn't stop crying. It was making me squirm. And that's as far as I got.
I am so excited about this novella. I am so excited about this novella. Jesus.
Thank you.
Terry, this is so good. Like, I'm not surprised, it's you. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Now everyone has homework. If you haven't yet, go submit to podcast. I'm gonna make Shingai cry. Cause that is wild. Yeah, y'all are out here wilding. I don't know. Yeah. I don't have it. I can't words right now, excuse me.
Ola is talking about praise twerking, and I'm like, that is the energy this has left me with. Like, we all need to twerk for 5 minutes.
I can't articulate with my body until after I articulate with my mouth, and it's all a struggle right now. So let's just bask.
All right, let me get my camera on. One moment.
All right, go for it. Did y'all start yet?
Honestly, nobody wants to watch me twerk. Nobody needs that in their life. That's not nice.
See, but you can't say you're going to turn your camera on and
then
specifically to twerk and then not do it.
Look,
like, someone needs to play a twerk song. That's what we're missing.
So...
Oh my God, I'll link y'all to the OnlyFans. Oh my God.
I was like, I'm not saying it's inappropriate.
We should do a Voodoonauts OnlyFans.
What would we wait.
Listen, there are erotica writers in here, I'm sure. That is all the content we're going to put out.
Like,
I love how the brand is growing. Like the first thing is like, we should do an anthology. Last date, OnlyFans.
I was like,
the range for me, you know.
I'm still concerned. Okay. So rather than go to this last session, which started however long ago and is whatever, we're just gonna do salutations here. Cause y'all showed up and showed out. You were so thoughtful and kind to our guests and to each other and attentive. And look, we understand that everyone couldn't make it to everything, but y'all got to as much as you could. And every time you did, it made us really proud. And then y'all come to this reading and you made us really proud. Proved why we selected you and why you belong, why we're together. So thank you for sharing your generosity. Thank you for sharing your words. Thank you for sharing your beautiful minds and your time and your energy and your effort. None of it goes unnoticed. And we're just, why do y'all know what the name of our WhatsApp group is? I'm trying to be all like, Jesus. Anyway,
guys.
because Voodoonauts peach is definitely what that group says in my, okay, anyway. Y'all just really made us really proud. I'm really effing happy. And I'm so glad that I got a chance to witness this genius. I'm so glad that 80% of this is on my computer. And I'm just ready for the world to see the genius that we've just glimpsed in the past 3 days. Only glimpsed it. So, oh, also, big shout out to Yvette, because we have had a year. We have had a year among years, and Yvette saw that we needed to get the motor running on this bad boy, and she steered it. She steered it kind of by herself for a little bit. We all jumped in and got the thing done, but like we can't move forward without acknowledging that if she hadn't done what she did, we wouldn't be here with you. You wouldn't be here with us. So let's just give her a round of applause.
Thanks, Andre. It was all the Voodoonauts. Applause for LP, Shingai, and you. Oh, you has his camera on now.
Oh, that is.
We should also shout out to our helpers. Is Shiju and Liz still here?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm here, but I'm like outside, so I don't want to make too much noise.
That's okay. We can give you your flowers without you doing anything. You good? Just bask. This is hard for us. This is a hard couple of days for us. Just the amount of presence that has to happen for us to be present and like really attentive in the way that y'all deserve for us to be. And so we've had some helpers this week who came in and just moderated a couple of things. They felt like they didn't do a lot, but it made a world of difference for us and our energy levels and our ability to be here with y'all. So the two who are here right now are Liz and Shiju, who are from the 2020 class. The two that aren't here are Audrey and Mubanga, who are also from the 2020 class, because there are only two classes. And they definitely made a lot of this happen. So we're also going to include some of their information when we send out all of the links to all of the videos and the link to the evaluation and we're going to give y'all a bunch of opportunities to say thank you with small bits of money if you want to. And you'll have those emails so you can do it over periods of time if you want to. Because again, this is free for y'all and people are giving their time. So never feel a way about saying, buying a girl a cup of coffee, look, $5 here, $5 there. And I'm talking a lot. There are women who need to speak. Yvette and Shingai, please take my mic.
Go ahead, Shingai.
Yvette is a self-proclaimed introvert, but she has a lot of beautiful things to say. If you read her, I think you would know. Y'all, I already cried. You already saw me cry. Like, I don't know what else there is to say. Yeah, still overwhelmed, still feeling a lot of feelings. This is family, and this has become a space of affirmation and growth, and um, and I am honored and in awe of all of you for being here. So grateful to my co-founder Yvette and our co-founders for just like being on this journey from the very beginning and doing all the things to keep it going. Like LP mentioned, this has been a year. There's been like multiple other things happening, and just their consistency and insistence on making this space realized is incredible. And I hope we've given you what you hoped for and what you expected. I hope we haven't disappointed you. And all we ask, because our motto for last year was blessed and blessing, right? Is that how it went? Yeah. Is you go out and be a blessing in the ways that you have been blessed. Yeah.
HD?
If your audio is a bit spotty.
Pull your hair back. It wasn't shade. Like sometimes when I just pull my hair back, my hair's not rubbing on the microphone. I think he's
Are you typing it in the chat? Okay.
I think he is.
Also, some of the things that we talked about in this space was like mutual aid. So even if you're not able to give money, guys, like like exchanging resources and services is a really cool way to go about being present for each other in the ways that we need. And I think LP dropped a WhatsApp sign up sheet, but you can also just send us your number if you're comfortable on email and we'll add you to the WhatsApp group.
Let me drop it again, just in case, because I don't want to put thing in the email. I have y'all just be like, this is too much information. I'm just gonna stop. Does anyone have anything they want to say?
Well, from the Voodoonauts stand, you guys, as usual, outdid yourself. So that's what I got.
Thank you.
Liz has been a day one supporter. Honestly.
100%. Anytime we have anything, I was watching classes that we did with Clarion West in the fall, and I was like, yeah, Liz was in my class. I think Liz was in both my classes. This is great. Always there, a fantastic poet, fantastic writer, and all about community, which is, I'm pretty sure, 95% of why she's here with us today. Love Liz to death. Shiju's also very much about community. I think Shiju's also a lawyer, so the fact that she makes time to be here with us is actually pretty exemplary, because I'd be tired after that.
Thank y'all. Sorry if there's a lot of background noise, but I do want to say you guys are phenomenal. As always, your effort doesn't go unnoticed, and we're so appreciative of you putting in all this work and creating this safe space
and this community. I'm so thankful. I always get so emotional hearing everything and hearing y'all read. It's incredible. Thank you.
I just want to say, one, thank you all for going through, like, even just having the program and then like expanding it out from last year to this year and like inviting all of us to be in community. The speakers y'all's got were amazing. And just also not only just the speakers and Uncle Tim with his finish your work, but also just like the support within the sessions and from like all of like the team, and then just everyone else saying, like, just put your work out there and keep writing and keep going, even as we all, I'm gonna talk for myself, but I know a couple other people feel that way. But the imposter syndrome, that you don't know what you're doing, or you're not good enough, or like there's other people that will do it better. But through it all, y'all have been really really supportive, and just like wherever we're at in our journey, whatever we are choosing to do, like I know that this team's got our back, and I think we all got each other's back. Or I'm gonna talk for myself. I want to see everything, so I can't wait to see where everyone goes.
Yeah, this has just been really helpful for me. I ate, I'm full, I feel great. I've been in a slump with writing since March, and I've had it just, all my writing has just been like edits because I haven't been able to produce anything new. And like, this is the first time I've written new stuff in, almost a whole quarter. And that felt great, and that was important to me. And I would not have done that had this weekend not happened. I put everything on hold, and it was totally worth it. But except this morning's class where I was trying to talk to y'all and teach the class at the same time. That's a different story.
And the correct answer is you make the entire cake and then you eat it over a couple of days. That's the correct answer.
Which is the answer every single girl in my class gave. I'm like, yeah, but that's not, we're trying to work out the math, honey. Yeah, you're right. You're smart. Yes, that's it. But
the math is you get 4 days of cake.
This was really great. And like, I was very happy to, like, a lot of speculative communities, on top of not being like Black exclusively, are also cost prohibitive. So this was really, really great. And then especially for anybody else who applied for VONA this past year, this was a wonderful palate cleanse from that whole entire process. And then also it was dramatic. For people who don't know, it was dramatic. It was a lot. Anyway, and then also, like, I'm not doing it. I promise. We can tea offline. I'm not doing it. But
yeah, we can tea about another time. But woo,
ciao. All right, nonsense, tomfoolery, shenanigans, and carrying on. Okay, but also, this was the first time I'd ever tried to write a ghost story, and it was a real, like, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if I was going to do a good job. And like, I really appreciated the response y'all gave me. It gave me a lot of gas for future projects and stuff. And I look forward to staying in touch with everybody in whatever form or fashion. No, I don't care if it's on the record. Y'all can say that. VONA's a hot mess right now. Everybody, listen, Stevie Wonder can see that shit. It does not matter if it is on the record.
So like I said in the chat, I feel like I've gotten like a whole new set of crazy, weird cousins who like doing crazy, weird things and don't mind me being crazy, weird. So I appreciate that. And I'd love to see like the range of ideas in this chat, man, like ghost stories. You have robots that dance sound like Chris Brown. You have what else do we have in here? You have mixed media art forms. You have, oh my gosh, it's just amazing to be in a space like this where not a single person has asked me, what is that word? What is that dotty? What does that mean? So, so it's been really validating and just a whole lot of joy. And I appreciate that we just laughed our way through this. Not a single tear was shed. Nobody felt, out of place. It's just unity, and I love that. So thank you for creating a space for that. And thank you to everybody here who shared and just gave love back.
Shingai did cry, but yeah, I understand what you're saying.
I don't know if y'all can hear me. I'm in my car. But thank you all so much. This is like the most Black creatives that I've been around, and I've been in school for like 20 years almost. So thank you so much for witnessing my work and being supportive and centering Black joy and Black creativity and Black intellect. And we talked about Black people. So I just want to say thank you so much, and I hope to keep in touch.
Can I just
Everything
say,
was great.
oh, go for it.
No,
David.
you go.
No, mine is a little bit of a tangent, so please go for it.
I was just gonna say everything was great, awesome. You guys are wonderful. The whole experience has been electrifying. Really got the creative juices going and had a real good sense of community. So everything was awesome and double everything everybody else said. Full, happy, ready to connect. This is fun.
Thank you, David. Okay, so you guys, because I really do want to see your pieces published. Like I'm actually invested in this right now. And the industry sucks. And it does not want to center our stories. And that is just the truth of the matter. And I just, now having worked on this other side of like the publishing, like being a co-editor at a magazine for a very short amount of time, I just started. But I'm like, the process of getting this work published, and I want to tell you because you're a family, is like also a lot. So one, don't take rejections personally. I know there's a whole conversation about rejections. I've been rejected 1,000,001 times. It is not a sign of your ability to do the work. A lot of the times it's to do with like how much the magazine can afford, how like the reader's personal taste, which is also another thing. If you can get first reader positions at magazines, do that shit, because that is really helpful with deciding what stories get to go up the chain when it comes to short stories and short fiction that is published, because it usually goes to the first readers and then they decide whether it goes up to the co-editors or whether it's rejected at the first round. So if we have a lot of white straight people reading stories at the first readers round, we will never see our stories being published. And I want us not just to be published in Black only spaces, but in all the spaces. So this is why I'm deeply invested in all of that work. And if you have any questions, I just submit. If you have any questions or any concerns about submitting work, like community is here for that specifically. So please reach out to your people, reach out to us. I want to see your stories. I want to see your stories published. I want to see you getting paid pro rates for your stories being published, because you deserve that shit. Courtney, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I've got to run, but I did just want to add to the thanks and the sense of just belonging and validation that everyone else has been talking about, because I really, it's part of my writing journey is I want to strengthen my community in terms of being a part of a community, because I have a couple writer friends here and there, but I want to be able to grow with everybody to get to our dreams. I want to be able to contribute to their success. Just as many people have fed into me, and helped to grow me to where I am today. So I want to be able to connect even more with y'all and grow the community and help y'all be part of the help that gets y'all to where y'all want to be. So I do got a role, but I don't have the WhatsApp. I've been avoiding WhatsApp for many years. So I will get it, because I really do want to stay in touch with everybody, and I want to read more. There's so many stories, actually, most of them, all of them today, that did, especially the ones that didn't end. I got to know what happens. And for everyone, I want to see publication for everyone. So I just want to be part of that journey for y'all. So yeah, I'll grab the WhatsApp as you young folks. I don't know, because I still don't get it, but whatever, I'll learn it. And I'll see y'all. I don't want to say I'll see you around, because that just sounds like, well, I'll see you around. I mean, and that never really goes anywhere in my experience. So, but I will see you soon. I will get the app and I will participate in this WhatsApp, whatever WhatsApp is.
And also
Bye,
a quick
Courtney.
tidbit. Firecon is having a writing contest, and half of y'all already got stuff to submit. So please do.
There is 100% that Fire LeVar Burton reads contest that I will drop in the chat now. But also, we're closing out in a minute, so make sure you grab it before we close out. Also, LeVar Burton reads and Fire are really great experiences as far as getting published in them. As someone who's been published in both, and they make it very easy, they make it very simple, and they're both really great places to have on one's resume. So, if you have the time, and I know you have the story, I know you got the story. If you have the time, go ahead and apply. Oh, submit, sorry. Because it's a really great place to be an alumnus, alumni. Dropping that bad boy now. For now. Okay, there we go. All right, y'all. So this will be the only time where I'm like, hey, we said we're gonna leave, now we're gonna actually leave. Because we need to go. I won't acknowledge you. That is an in the house joke. We don't use that with strangers. Yeah, I'm gonna close it out. I love you guys. I'm so glad and proud and blessed and touched by this experience with you. I'm looking forward to more experiences with you. Y'all go ahead and populate that spreadsheet. In the next week, we are going to send evaluations. We're going to send links to all of the videos. We're going to post the public videos on the YouTube so people can YouTube that shite. There's one other thing. Maybe that is it. But we're going to get you everything you need. We're going to send out information for everyone who was a guest, everyone who moderated, everyone who taught a class, just so you can add people on your Instagrams, on your Twitters, do whatever it is you want to do or need to do, and just know that we're accessible while the workshop is over. This connection is not. So keep that in mind, and we will see y'all in these streets, in these Twitter streets, in these workshop streets, in these WhatsApp streets. This is the beginning. This is not the end. Okay? Bye, fam. Be blessed and blessings.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Stay blessed.
Go.